All right, so I will fully introduce myself more later, just for a little extra padding on that, but representation matters is my thing for the most part, and this workshop, or seminar, or whatever we're calling it, is more so geared towards tools to use to have difficult conversations about representation, and I only have an hour, so it was really hard trying to figure out what to try and squeeze in there, and I tend to be long-winded, so I'm going to try not to be that today. And so we're going to do more of a masterclass of how you guys can use the things you already know to guide yourselves when you're having those difficult conversations, because there's no one way to do things. There might be a right way to do things, but I can't say that I know what that is. But I can tell you what I do know, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start with an icebreaker. All right, so I want everyone to make a friend, one person. We're going to buddy up, and if there's one extra, then you can be my friend. It doesn't have to be someone you know. It can be a stranger. We breaking the ice. All right, are we good? Any surplus? Cool. Wow. All right, so what you're going to do is everyone's going to hold up their right hand like this and show it to their friend. And you're going to exchange. You're just going to give your friend an L. Just give them an L. Because right now we're going to learn how to take an L. And you are going to look at your friend and you're going to say, I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to learn how to take an L today, because these conversations often end in when we think we're right and we are not. And it's important for us to learn how to make mistakes and apologize for them, because if we cannot do that, then we do not stand a chance. So, in my opinion, apparently my phone is not on Do Not Disturb, so I'm going to go ahead and do that and ask you to do the same. And we're good. In my opinion, these are the steps that I take. So, everybody makes mistakes. It is going to happen. Everyone in this room has made a mistake before and will make a mistake again, because no one is infallible. We're human. That's in our nature. We're going to make mistakes. So the first step after you make a mistake is to apologize for it. You say, I'm sorry. Mistakes can happen in many forms. They can happen in the form of misgendering someone, which is a very common thing that happens these days, because we're in a space of growth and we're learning, and I still do it, and then I correct myself. I'm sorry, and then you go with the right thing, right? Don't double down. Please don't double down. If you make a mistake, don't defend your mistake. You're wrong. It's okay. It doesn't make you less of a person. You've just made a mistake because you're a human, and humans make mistakes. That's how that works. Don't explain. Usually when it comes to matters of representation and racism and all the isms, no one cares why you did what you did. No one cares. Don't explain. If they ask you for an explanation, sure, go for it. But don't just offer up the reason why, because honestly, it doesn't matter. Don't do it. And remember, the damage is done. You did it. You made the mistake. You cannot take that back. You gotta hold that L like it's yours. And you're gonna learn from it. You're gonna turn that L from loss into learn, right? So next time you make a mistake, if you have to, you think about, you can make your physical L and remind yourself that it's okay to make a mistake. It's gonna happen. All right, so this is me. I am Ayesha McGowan, and I've been given my spiel for 2 days, so I think I have it now. So, there's never before in history been an African-American female professional road cyclist. Can everyone hear me and see me? Do I need to stand up? Do I need to use a mic? Oh, that's great. Yeah, you need a mic? I will do it for you. That's fine. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm now on a limited range, so it's fine. How far does it? Let's see how far it goes. Oh We're here. What's up?
I'm actually just really interested. The quick brown fox, why is there no lazy dog?
What do you mean?
So a quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, every letter of the alphabet in it.
Right.
So what's the background behind?
That's your actual question. I like naming things, and I was starting a blog, and I wanted a clever name for it. When I was in high school, I had a blog, and it was called Enter Clever Title Here. We have progressed quite a bit since then. This is a much better name. And it resonated with me. I don't remember what the other ideas were, but I'm brown, and I'm quick, and I guess foxy, I don't know. But I liked it, and that was enough. Like, it brought me joy, and that's why. Okay, so there's never in history been an African-American female professional road cyclist, and so I am first, and I also advocate for better representation for people of color in the cycling industry. So I am going for the structural part of things. Okay, so that's me, and this is where you can find me. I have business cards in the back, so you don't have to remember it. But I'm really active on the Instagrams and the Twitters, so if you need a fun follow, I think I'm a pretty fun follow. And I think that covers me there. Thank you. Okay, sweet. So if you've done a workshop with me before, you've seen this. So what we're gonna do as quickly as we can, because I've already wasted a lot of time being ridiculous, I'm sorry. We're going to define these terms. And I don't want to give you my definition. I want you guys to help me define them, because we're all going to have slightly different answers, and we're going to come to an agreement on them. So who wants to define privilege? Who wants to start? You can't get it wrong. Go for it.
When you have a leg up in the game, you have like a advantage. You're naturally assumed to be the best or welcomed, or there's a lot of ways that privilege can, I guess, look.
Okay. Anybody want to add or subtract from that, to that?
The advantages you enjoy that you didn't necessarily earn.
Okay. Anyone want to add or subtract to that? We like this definition of privilege. We are all agreeing on this definition of privilege.
You don't have to think about things.
You don't have to think about things. Okay. Anything else? Add or subtract? Inherited. Add or subtract? Okay. That's what we're working with. Implicit bias. Who wants to start us off? Go for it.
Where you're being biased without realizing it, you're excluding or focusing on the way you talk without actually reflecting on what you're doing.
Okay.
You're
Add
being biased without actually doing it or thinking about it.
Add or subtract?
Unconscious assumptions about people.
Add or subtract? Okay. Tokenism. What we got? Any takers? All right, let's start there.
When you're the only one in the room and people expect you to speak for your entire community.
That never happens. Add or subtract?
When people talk about diversity and have a single person that doesn't look like everyone else and say that they're
The diversity? Yes.
yes.
Using a person or a group of people to project a facade of diversity while not giving them power.
Add or subtract? Okay, I feel like we've covered that. Equity versus equality. We can break it down into equity, what that means first, if that's helpful. Who wants to try? Go ahead.
The boxes at the baseball game, I think everyone's seen the photo of the three kids, different heights. Equality is everyone gets the same size box because it's all equal. Equity is the smallest kid is able to still see over the fence because he needs a bigger box to see up. The middle kid gets a slightly smaller box, but it's still a bigger box than a taller kid. If they're all able to see over the fence by using different sized boxes, whereas equality is you're all just getting the same boxes.
Okay, but that kid can't see over the fence because he's still too short. Okay. Add or subtract?
I think that's a nice infographic that a lot of us have seen, but the problem is the fence, just saying. But equity would be everybody gets what they need, and equality is everybody gets the same thing whether you need it or not.
Right. Add or subtract?
Equity accounts for the structural forces that are preventing people from accessing the same thing.
Add or subtract?
Equity is an attempt to counteract the benefits of privilege.
Add or subtract? Okay, that works. Ooh, hello. Let's talk about unintended impacts of representation. So I'm going to start you off with one example that always blows my mind. And it's not a positive example. It's a very negative example. And then there are positive ones. So Birth of a Nation was a book, and then it was a film. And not the more recent one, but in the 1900s, late 1800s, somewhere around there. And in this film is the Ku Klux Klan. And in that film, they burn crosses. And after that film, there was a resurgence of both the Ku Klux Klan and the emergence of them burning crosses. Something that they learned from a film. Something that was added to a film for dramatic effect and has now impacted the lives of so many. Can you guys think of any other examples, unintended impacts of representation? It doesn't have to be that extreme. Like, I picked an extreme one because it drives it home, but any unintended impact, yes?
Hollywood's representation of Native Americans.
What is the result? What is the impact?
Just really unfair stereotypes and I don't know, really, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? You know what that really bothers me lately? Red hats. Red hats really throw me into I'm like, wait, what does it say?
The OK sign.
The OK sign, tell me more.
So the OK sign has now been hijacked into a racist right-wing symbol for certain groups.
Oh yeah, that the white power thing, yeah.
Yes.
So strange.
Yeah.
The new one I saw recently was the frog, and I still don't know the full story behind it.
Oh yeah,
I just,
yeah. Things being co-opted. Any other unintended impact of representation?
When another people controls images, for example, media, TV, movies, magazines, and they're portraying the images of another person or another group, they see from their own perspective. For example, what is natural woman's hair to me from an African perspective is never represented on TV, but because I don't have the money or the access or the platform, someone else's representation becomes my daughter's representation of what is beautiful, whether it's a pageant or model, etc. Same thing in pretty much everything. It's the perspective of taking someone else's image and using it from your own perspective and telling them what they should see or feel.
Okay. Are we having trouble hearing in the back? Move forward. And we're all going to talk a little louder. Come on, move forward. We can do it. Get close. We won't bite. All right. Intention is irrelevant if the impact is harm. And this is something that I want everyone to remember when they are considering engaging in these conversations. It's like taking that L. It doesn't matter what you were trying to do. It matters what you are doing and what you did. Okay. All right, so we're gonna talk about the tools that we can use and the things that we need to remember when we're engaging. And I think number one is be willing to get uncomfortable. So for me, at this point, it's not uncomfortable to talk about these things because I do it all the time. I've practiced doing it, and so now it's okay. But at first it's like, oh, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. And these are all important things to consider. But at the same time, I have to understand that my discomfort is necessary to have these conversations. And more importantly, when it comes to dealing with matters of representation and talking to people who deal with oppression constantly, when people of color go into white spaces, we are often uncomfortable, but we have been accustomed to that discomfort for most of our lives, or all of our lives. We've learned to be uncomfortable in those spaces, and we've learned to prioritize the comfort of the people who are oppressing us, and that's ridiculous. So if you are the privileged person in this conversation, I think it's important that you remember and be willing to be uncomfortable and maybe learn a couple of things that you didn't expect to learn, or feel a couple of things that you didn't expect to feel, and be okay with that, and be okay with processing that in real time, because it's gonna happen. Fear is not a justification for oppression. Your fear is not going to make the oppression of others stop. Just because you're afraid to deal with it doesn't make it go away. And if you are in a privileged position of interacting and helping resolve a situation, then maybe it's not your duty, but your fear is not an excuse for why it's happening. Your fear does not make it okay for you to walk away. It just doesn't. I take a strong stance that I'm not gonna force anybody to do something that they don't wanna do. I'm not going to force companies or people to care about representation. I am bringing awareness. I am letting you know that it's there, and what you do with that is your business. I encourage everyone to strongly think of it as an important thing, but I can't make you. I can't, it's just not possible. Be specific, don't assume. You cannot speak for me, I cannot speak for you. I am not the spokesperson for all Black people. It's just not the case. So I will often say, I can only speak for myself, and I will speak for myself, because I do not know the experiences of every other Black person in the world. I just don't. And it's even worse if you are not even a member of that community and you're speaking on their behalf. Don't do it. And be very specific about what you're talking about. If you mean Black people, say Black people. If you mean people of color, say people of color. If you mean women, say women. I've had conversations where the term used is diversity, and well, that can mean a lot of things, like a whole lot of things. And it's important for you, when you're having these conversations, to say what you are talking about, because if you assume that you're having a conversation about racial diversity and people of color and Black folks or Black women or whoever you're talking about, you could be very wrong, because I have done this, and I've been having that conversation where they're just talking about women, and I'm not just talking about women. So be very specific when you say what you say. Are we all still here? We're good? Okay. Be mindful of your sources. All right, this one's tricky because I feel like growing up in school, they taught us this, right? They taught us, for the most part, if you went to English or whatever in high school, then they taught you about bibliographies and citing your sources and making sure that you don't use Wikipedia as a reliable source. Or I think we did a project once where we had to go to the library and use books, and we were all like, what? But in this day and age with Facebook, it's so easy to be like, man, I read this thing, and then I just stop listening most of the time. But be mindful of where your sources are coming from. Is this a publication that favors one specific thing? Is it an unbiased source? Is it reliable? And are you just shouting out statistics because you read them somewhere, because you heard them somewhere? Where did those statistics actually come from? Because we have found that a lot of these statistics, what a word, a lot of these statistics were calculated and formulated, and the research was done by biased people. And they don't actually have the sources for the statistics. They weren't pulled from a place that favored the study that they were actually trying to accomplish. So it's nice to have facts and figures. That's fantastic. Good for you. But where did they come from? Are they real? A lot of people are not going to care about that, you know, because it might not be reliable. And we've learned in having these conversations that it's not always the case. So be mindful of your sources. That means not just listening to your friend or your black friend or your mama or whoever. Maybe they know some things and that's fine, but be mindful of when you're spouting out these sources at other people, when you're using these facts and figures to have these conversations, how relevant that is to your immediate conversation. Stick to what you know. What do you know? Like, what do you actually know? And like, think about that. So you have these conversations, and then someone catches you off guard. They hit you with something like, well, what about this? And then you're like, what about that? Do you have a response? Do you know the answer? Now you know what you don't know, and you can learn. You can educate yourself. You can find resources to learn the things you don't know. And that doesn't mean bothering those people that you think might know, because there's a whole world of resources out there that you can find for yourself. We got the internet. You know, we still have libraries. They're still there. And there are people who will, for a fee, teach you what they know. Because it is labor. It is emotional labor and actual labor. Educate yourself. It's your job to learn. Know the difference between representation and tokenism. So who wants to recap how we defined tokenism earlier? What did we agree on? Do you remember? Go for it.
That when people are saying that, look, we're diverse and we have the one person that doesn't look like everyone else in the room, and that's tokenism and not representation.
Right. So there's good representation and bad representation, right? What I see often on the internet is this idea that we can like put up a picture of a person that we know that like represents a thing, and we feel like we've done it. And a lot of times that happens without their permission. But it's important to remember that those people are not props for your argument. They're not like, if you've got like one black woman working in your office, let's say her name is Tammy. So Tammy works in your office, and you put Tammy on the flyer again to show representation, and y'all think Tammy is happy because it is diverse. We've done the diversity. But what you don't know is Tammy has a group chat. And Tammy, in that group chat, has told her friends that y'all done put her on the flyer again because there is not a single other black woman in this office. Don't do it to Tammy. She doesn't appreciate it. She's smiling because she needs a job. And that's it. That is not representation. Hiring one black person is not representation. Having one black friend is not representation. And you cannot use them as a defense for how you're not racist, or how you're not sexist, or how you're not this, or how you're not that. I don't care if you have black kids. It doesn't matter. You can still do the things that you're trying not to do. It doesn't excuse you. They're not props and not costumes. Okay. Be patient and be humble. Be patient and be humble. Okay, so a lot of times these conversations end up in just being shouting matches. And internet shouting is a very weird thing to witness, but a very real thing to like experience. Like you can tell when it's gone from like, we're having a conversation to nothing productive is going to come out of this. And that happens when people decide that they're no longer going to be patient or humble. Now, if you are in a privileged position, it's really hard to see that sometimes. And I have a strong belief that everybody has a really hard time recognizing the full lengths and the full depths of their actual privilege. Like you'll have folks that are like, I spend so much time learning about my privilege and figuring out, what to do, and I run this organization and I donate to charity. And I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like right now, in this moment, you're wrong. You're doing something wrong. Your intent, whatever it may be, might be okay, but your impact is harm. And all of that great work that you've done to find yourself and be a better person is fantastic. Please keep doing that, because honestly, you just need some more work on it, but it doesn't excuse you from making mistakes. You still need patience. You still need humility. You're still going to be wrong. You're still going to take L's, and it's going to surprise you. Be patient. Be humble. Know when to speak up. This one's really hard. This one's so hard because there are times when you feel obligated to chime in, right? And there's times when you just need to mind your own business. But if you are in a position to improve a situation, if you have privilege and power, you need to speak up. If you see a company, okay, I'll give a recent example, and I'm gonna put my company on spot. So I race for Liv, the bike brand, and I love them to death. They're treating me quite well. When was Halloween? 2 days ago, there was a post where Mariana Voss and Ashley Mormon, who are racers, they race for the CCC Live World Tour team. They're in full-on Asian garb. And under the post on the caption it said, "Happy Halloween." And they're both white women, that's important. And I saw this and I'm like, oh jeez. That's a time where you should speak up. And that's a time where I had to say to myself, fear is not an excuse for oppression, right? Because in my head, I'm like, man, these are my sponsors, right? Like, they're not gonna like it if I'm like, dude, that was super racist. You should really take that down. But at the same time, I don't like being the representative of a company that's gonna do that. And I don't wanna let that stand. So I pulled them aside, sent them a little message, and explained why that was not okay, and encouraged them to either change the caption or take it down. Because I had context. I knew that they had recently done a race there, and it was probably like a cultural experience where they were appreciating the culture and not wearing those outfits as costumes, right? But in the context of Happy Halloween, I can't talk them out of that. Like if somebody was like, what's up with your company? I'd be like, man, that's just racist. I don't know. I can't navigate that one. So I just told them to take it down. And they did. And I was like, whoa, they took it down. They said, thank you for your advocacy. And they took it down. And I'm still kind of surprised because I honestly didn't know what they were gonna do. So I'm happy to see that. But it was a time where I could have went about my business, let it keep going. Happy Halloween. I mean, the captions underneath was like, oh, you guys are so beautiful. And they looked great. But at the same time, I can imagine that a lot of people looked at that and were like, really? Again? I mean, it's not blackface, but it's also still not a costume. That's not okay. So know when to speak up, because there are times where you're gonna need to. And I was in a position where I had direct contact to somebody who could do something about it. And that is a time when you definitely should speak up. Know when to stop talking. This one is probably more important than know when to speak up. Because when you have to put your foot in the mouth, and it's embarrassing. You're taking another L, right? When to stop talking is when you don't know what you're talking about, when you're not contributing to the conversation, when you've lost your patience, when you have lost your humility. I have a rule. or I will engage 3 times. I had to give myself this rule because I became one of those people that would just shout all day on the internet, and it's exhausting. 3 times I will engage, and if I feel like this person is basically trolling and there's no resolution that's going to happen here, I'll take a step back and let someone else step in, because I am no longer being productive. Know when to stop talking, know when to back away, because sometimes it's just going to do more harm than good. This is the most important and final point. Listen. Listen. Don't listen to respond or react. Like, really listen and pay attention to the conversation that's happening in front of you. It's going back to all those other points, right? Being humble, being patient. Do you need to be right? Is that the priority? What are you trying to gain from this conversation? What are you trying to accomplish from this conversation? It's like super important to just try and be aware of what's happening while it's happening. And I'm sorry if my voice is like super monotonous today. It's been a very long week. But if there was anything that you remember from coming here today, it would be people make mistakes, say sorry, and listen. Because you can learn so much if you just listen to people. And I've enjoyed being here this weekend because I've had the opportunity to have conversations in real time. I feel like a lot of people are a little bit more comfortable, surprisingly, saying things to my face and asking questions to my face, whereas they're afraid to chime in on the internet because they're afraid of being wrong. They're afraid of making mistakes because they don't realize that mistakes happen and it's okay. And if someone corrects you, you can just say sorry. Oh wow, I learned something new. Thank you. I don't know why everyone's so afraid of being, I guess, embarrassed. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions about anything? You can ask. This is I set aside time, so you can ask your questions about specific instances, specific interactions that you had and how to navigate them, general questions, whatever. But I'm going to ask you to come so we can hear your question, if that's okay. Can you come?
I'll go this way.
I think this is the range. This is how far we got.
We got it. Could you describe things or feelings or evidence where you feel like you see a shift from tokenism to representation, and where, what markers do you feel where you're like, okay, yeah, we've crossed a brink here?
Okay, so if you ask me who's doing it well, who's got it right, I'm gonna tell you no one. Because the answer to that question is consistency, and there just has not been enough time for us to see consistency, because for some reason, the idea of representation in this industry is still super new. And it's still sort of catching on, and a lot of the representation we see, unfortunately, is still in the tokenism phase, where you get the diversity, you get a black face or a brown face, and we did it, go us. And then maybe you get another one in 3 years. I guess the big example of myself is the cover of Outside magazine, which was a surprise to me and still a surprise to me. And I was like, man, that's really cool. I was super excited because I didn't expect it. And then I was like, I wonder how many other black folks have been on this magazine. And I went back and I looked at every single cover of every single issue. And I found one black woman in a women's issue, maybe a year before. But she wasn't by herself. She was it was her and a bunch of other women. And then I was like, all right, I wonder about just people of color. How did we do there? And I found one Asian man that they'd used 2 or 3 times. And that's it. That's like their whole history. And I don't remember how many years this magazine's been around, but it's a while. They've had a lot of issues because it's a monthly magazine. That is not representation. I was not representation. By definition at this point, because they did it one time, that was tokenism. And it's annoying, but that's what it was. That's what it is. And I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah. I think a company that's showing promise, let's start there, is Machines for Freedom. I don't know if you're aware of them, but they are a women's cycling apparel brand based in California. And for a while, it was just two of them, I think both white women. And I think they just are hiring another employee, which I'm really excited for them. But they have consistently shown, it's a women's brand, so it's women of different cultures and races and sizes. And they're doing a really good job. And I hope they keep it up. It's a great example that I wish more people would follow, more companies would follow. Question? Come on up.
I need to stand on the stage, or I can just stand.
You don't have to, no.
I have a question more about your racing career.
Okay.
Because I follow you on.
Oh, careful. It's a short range.
Are you going to be able to make it to the European racing circuit? Or are you still just primarily racing in the United States? Or do you think your goal is to make it to, the Women's Tour de France or races like that?
That is a question and I have an answer. Okay, so I've been on this mission for 5 years. I think it was my 5th season. And I am at the point now, I'm sorry if you heard this already, but I'm at the point now where I've decided that my definition of success has changed. And I've had to make that decision because of the experiences that I have had. So I'm at the point now where I can be on a team that does those things, which is really cool, and I'm really proud of that. But I'm also at the point where I'm at an understanding that despite being at that level and in that space, that I am signing myself up for tokenism and exploitation. And the space is not ready yet. And there's a lot more work to be done. And I don't want to give up my autonomy and ability to do that work. And I'm in a space now where I'm a sponsored athlete, where I get paid to race my bike, and I get paid to race my bike at the pro level, and I can go where I want and race where I want and do what I want and say what I want, most importantly. And I would be an idiot to trade that to become a token on a team filled with white women who can tell me to stop talking when they feel like it because I signed my name on a piece of paper that gave them permission to do that. I won't do it. And I have feelings, but at the same time, my priority has never been myself. The racing was always a tool for the advocacy, and I understand how this industry works. And unfortunately, they favor people who go fast in spandex. And I don't like that, and I'm doing my best to alter that as much as possible. So I have raced in Europe, and I probably will again at some point, but my priorities have shifted, and I want to continue to enjoy racing, and I want to not be in a space where I'm so stressed out that I can't keep doing the work that I'm doing. And I found that was starting to be the case. And when those opportunities started to arise, I made the decision that I didn't want to do that. Other questions? Please. I like your shirt. Where'd you get it?
Downstairs. They're very, very well represented. No, it's a good shirt. First, I'd very shortly like to say I'm very, very proud as a Black person to have heard that she would make a decision like that to forego the professional, popular choice that so many kids make. They will give up their own autonomy, anything that would make other kids, other generations proud. That is very commendable. As far as representation matters, my question is, matters to whom and for what reason? Businesses are to make money, and they will target audiences based on what money they can make. And basically, I think that she's pointing out that we don't matter. And I think that's important for maybe to address.
Okay. That feels more complicated of a question. Let's see. I think at this stage, representation matters more to the people who are not represented than anyone else, right? Just by nature, because if you don't know it's not happening, why would you care? But businesses are trying to make money, and if you are trying to make money, then you're gonna want an audience. Like, you wanna grab as many audiences as you can, right? You wanna grab as many folks as you can and take their money from them. And there are actually quite a few people of color who ride bikes and spend lots of money on bike things. And the industry is not showing that. And by not showing that, they're missing out on all the other people of color who could potentially be buying bikes and spending money on bike things. So it might, it might be a money talk type of thing to convince people that representation should matter to them, and that means that representation is going to matter for the wrong reasons. But I think at this point, representation mostly matters to the people who are not being represented. And that's not just the case in bikes, it's the case kind of everywhere, right? I don't know, if someone feels differently about it, you are free to share. Any questions? Other questions? What time is it? We're still doing good. Yeah?
Hi. So where I live, we're organizing in a predominantly white space, and we try to use really inclusive language to let folks know that we are an inclusive community. And
where do you live?
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Well, Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And there are lots of teams. So we're organizing in a space predominantly white, trying to use inclusive language. How do we reach out to folks to actually bring those people in? Because sometimes when it's a group, well, every time when it's a group of white people using really inclusive language just for the white people in the room, that feels just really wrong. So if you have any thoughts on that, that would be
just
helpful.
Out of curiosity, what are you organizing?
Oh, so cycling events. We do like beginners clinics, just different social events around bikes. So it's not race specific, but there are resources for racing.
Okay.
But we're trying to diversify the group.
Right.
And yeah, we want to make a space available. We want to make this space available for more people to come in, to then find other places where they can go. Okay.
So you said that you're using inclusive language, but where is this inclusive language being displayed? Like, whose eyes are on it? Are you advertising and promoting to other white people? Like, are they the ones that are seeing it? Or are these flyers or informational documents, whatever they're called, reaching the communities that you're actually trying to bring in? Are you physically showing up in the spaces? Like, I think what I'm getting at is it depends on where, how, and who. If you are just marketing on your social media and all of your followers look like you, then that's who's going to see it and that's who's going to show up. And I think there needs to be a consistency to marketing and promotion that doesn't happen often. It's like, well, we said black folks could come and none of them showed up. And it's like, well, that's not enough. And did they even see it? I think I lost my train of thought and I had a thought. Where did it go? Hello, welcome to the inside of my brain. Where was I going? I was going somewhere. Oh, right, yes, reaching out. I've lost that thought completely. If it comes back, I'll just randomly blurt it.
Can I make a comment based on that?
Yeah, and he has something as well.
Like, say, for example, I grew up in an environment that was like that space that you're talking about, where it's very white, you're trying to use inclusive language and bring people from other communities in. Addressing the barriers that keep people from those other communities to come in is actually probably a bit more effective than just your marketing materials or reaching out. For example, there is a reason that we don't go quote unquote across the tracks as a black person, or when the street lights go out, we don't want to be in a certain area. Those impediments are the things that actually are I think a bigger barrier to getting people to come to your bike seminars or bike changing things or whatever. It just being there is not enough. You have to learn from either someone who deals with that or yourself go past that barrier into their space where you're not safe in order for you to understand, oh, okay, if they come past this barrier, they'll be stopped and someone will ask them, did you steal that bicycle? You understand? In your neighborhood, I could have cleats on and $12,000 bike, and I'll still get stopped by the cops, for example. So yeah, you can advertise for a free clinic or a free tune-up, but I can't even come there. You understand?
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you.
You had something as well.
Questions, comments, all the things. All right. So I'm actually in Washington, D.C., so we can connect. So I'm on a triathlon team called District Triathlon, and we have the triathlon team to include people of color into the sport, which is not diverse at all. But I'm also a triathlete coach, and I coach a new triathlete program for everybody in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia to get into the sport. So we can definitely connect. But as I think about District Triathlon, Black Men Run, all these other groups I'm a part of, they're really important, but if I think about spaces that are not intentionally for people of color, I personally understand that having to be that token. So thinking about your experience where you say, yes, I have to be that token because nobody else is going to be that. Like, how do you navigate that? Understanding that, one, you have to be that for a particular time. You just kind of touched on it as you think about continuing your pro career. But what has been your experience when you understand that you have to be that? And how do you back out of that at some point? It's a bit complex.
I think you back out of it by creating other spaces, better spaces, your own spaces. There are a couple of POC only spaces or Black only spaces that have been created because people were tired of being tokens. And I don't think it's ever okay, but I know in order to break certain barriers, like someone's got to take the initiative to do it, and figure out how to navigate those spaces. And I feel like I have a particular skill set that makes it so that I am good at kind of weaseling my way into spaces, and when I manage to do that, I try and use that ability and that power for good to have conversations like these and try and navigate things better so the next person that tries to do it maybe won't have to have that same experience. Like speaking up about what happened. So if you do feel like you were tokenized, telling them and telling them why. And that sometimes is super hard because especially in this industry where sponsorship and ambassadorships, it's like, oh, they gave me a bunch of free stuff, right? That's awesome. And they have done me this huge favor, but it's like, did they really? Or are they doing that to use your face because now they've got the diversity? Now you're the diversity because they gave you a bag. Was your dignity worth a bag? The answer is no. And trying to use that position to also bring other people in and you know, diversify that space some more. So over time it becomes less of the thing that it is, but it is still the thing for a while. It's like there's no way around it unless you've got like a really awesome person that works there, which is why I hire more people of color is usually my answer to things. But that's another conversation, I guess. Yes.
Who are the people that are coming up behind you that are women of color or black women in the sport that you're seeing are progressing at a pace that they're going to be able to access pro level?
Okay, so there's not very many that I know about. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but the most relevant example that I can think of is Maze Wimbush, and she's in Maryland, near DC somewhere, and she's actually on the 2020 development squad, their like junior squad, and it makes me so happy because she's like 12 or 13 now, and she's been at it for a couple years, and last year was her first year on the squad. Her parents are phenomenal and like have really, you know, boosted her up, and like she's super confident and like just really awesome and a good bike racer. I think she's a Cat 4 now. She doesn't just ride with the juniors anymore. And she's at the point actually, last I heard, where she's like understanding the humility of certain things, where it's like she was used to winning junior racers, but with Cat 4 she had to work a little harder. So I think she's got a lot of promise, and I think she's got a good head on her shoulders, and a really good support system, and I think that makes a world of difference. And she's in a position of privilege because of that. And so there's not many examples that I know about. There were a few over the years that have like, they were doing it and then they're not doing it anymore. But she's the furthest along that I can see. Yes?
I'll do this thing. Hi.
Hi.
I just want to thank you so much because seeing you and hearing your mission from like years ago has been really validating and affirming, and makes me want to keep pushing more and more. So it's really awesome to share space with like a hero of mine. Thank you
Stop
so
it!
much for that. No, for real. Who else, like, right? So thank you so much for your work. Like it has meant everything to me. But so I'll stop crying now and ask you how your journey into like pro racer status, like being that freaking fast, has shaped your like brain in a way where you're more confident, or like how has that changed how you perceive things?
Okay, I'm processing what your question means. So I'm a very compartmentalized person, and so the racing in my head has always been for me. Like I race bikes because I enjoy it. Sorry, I'm like touching this mic on my thing, and that's always been like if it isn't fun, it isn't worth it. Is like the thing. Like it's like the phrase that I say over and over to myself whenever I'm reassessing where I am in a moment. And I don't know that the racing itself has ever brought me confidence. I think the advocacy honestly has. I think seeing all of you here and things like that, like just sitting at that table this week, and I'm not gonna cry, sitting at the table and like having people come up to me and like affirm the things that I'm doing and saying that they actually are making an impact and making a difference, like that gives me confidence, and that gives me the wings to like keep speaking up and like keep advocating for people, because there are people that actually care and that are actually benefiting from it, and that's like so awesome. Like racing is such a weird thing. Like sports are so weird. Being an athlete is so strange, and like I don't enjoy training. I said it out loud. I like riding my bike, right? I like riding my bike, but I also really like racing. So I'm like, all right, so in order to like not get dropped, then I have to train, because if I'm in these races and I am the diversity, right? and then I'm like doing really terribly, like now I'm a token again. So I have to train in order to like compete, but it's also really nice to do well. Like it feels good to do well. So I think the racing is always gonna be like that super struggle of like, I do this because it's fun, but then there's like a less fun thing that I have to do in order to do it. And that's the work, like that's the job part. But the advocacy is the thing that like gives me confidence and like makes me really excited to do things and like keeps me going. And like I get really pumped on like my programming. Like I'm working on some really fun projects and waiting for funding, and I hope that they work out because it means I get to do really cool things for other people. And I found the first couple of years of racing, part of me not doing well was because I was so busy like cheering everybody else on during the race, because that's my personality. Like I want to see everyone succeed, and then I forget that maybe I can succeed too. And that's just some personal stuff that I got to work out, but yeah, I don't know if that helps answer that, but racing is, I do it because it's fun, and I did it for me, and it's a tool for the advocacy because it's the thing that got me noticed. Like people are like, whoa, what is this? And then I get to say other things. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but did you know about the lack of representation? I'm the only one here, did you notice that?
How would you handle someone who speaks out against their own community? So
Okay.
a person of color
Mhm.
or a female who's like, I did this all on my own.
Mhm.
I don't need other women in here because they can. If I can do this all on my own, you all can do it all on your own too.
Bootstraps.
Yeah. How would you engage with that individual?
I will only engage 3 times. Those individuals definitely exist. They have names, I won't share them, but I have a group chat. And it's exhausting. It's so exhausting because when there's so few of you, people are going to gravitate towards the person who's saying the thing that they agree with, right? So I'm trying to think of an example of someone. Okay, let's Stacey Dash is. I don't know what she does, honestly. She just talks, and people like to listen to her sometimes until they don't want to listen to her anymore. But she says like these absolutely ridiculous things in the name of like speaking for Black people, and then the majority of Black folks were like, we don't agree with that. But it doesn't matter because they found a Black person that will say the thing that they are trying to spread. And I know I'm like speaking kind of vaguely here, but it's frustrating, is the honest answer, when you've got somebody who's like, I did it myself. Great, good for you, congratulations. Don't you want other people to do it too? And I also call complete crap on that because nobody does anything alone. I did not do this myself. There is a whole community of people, a whole support system of people that have helped me get to this point. And so, good for them for thinking that, but I don't know. I'll engage 3 times. That's how I deal. Yeah?
I guess a follow-up question on that. As someone who is not part of the community of color, if they are basically saying that and we're like, no, we need more diversity, how can we say you're wrong without coming off as racist? Because we want to say we need more diversity, and they're like, no, we don't. They can do it on their own. I only did it, like, you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I feel like that's very situational. And I feel like there are some people that you gotta just stop engaging with at a certain point. And unfortunately, in this world, optics are everything. And it's situational, and I have answers, but do you want to try?
I think you touched on that earlier when you said don't talk about things that you don't know about. So that particular person is talking about their individual belief. They're not somebody who's representing a group, for example. So we don't, I don't, and I know you said you don't as well. You shouldn't try to speak for your whole quote-unquote community or group, etc. And I think in that particular circumstance, why is a great thing to tell that particular person. Like if someone was to say, from my community as a black person, we don't need something, just continually with why. What makes you believe that? And they usually fall apart immediately because they just have this unquantifiable self-hatred that they cannot reference to a fact or to experiential things that prove what it is that they're saying. You don't need it. If you're hungry and your belly is fat, it's like, okay, that's a direct physical representation. But if you're starving to death and you say, oh, I'm overeating, and you're obviously anorexic, I can look at you and see that. So that particular person, ask them why. What makes you justify that and say we don't need it? Show me all of these black people that makes me, oh, you're right. There's a bunch of you, so you don't need diversity. Oh, you own businesses, you own manufacturing. So, oh, yeah, you're right. You don't need diversity. They couldn't justify that. So why is, I think, a really good tool.
I think we're out of time. I just wanted to add it to that point in the same vein, a lot of things that I often get we need to focus on women and not diversity. We don't need to focus on that, and that's crap. I don't agree with it. I just wanted to say that out loud. But while I have you, before you're gone, come visit me at table T18, and I have shirts and stuff. And if you don't know about my ride series, I'm gonna tell you about it before you leave. So this is because I don't like to train, and I discovered that you have to train in the winter months. Just nuts. Like, what are we doing? So I wanted other people to have motivation to do stuff in the winter months, and I hated this idea that, oh, in order to be awesome, you have to want to race bikes, right? That's not true. So the idea of Do Better Together is that everybody can set their own individual goal that is important to them. So I want to be fit for racing. That's great. Some people just want to ride it all because they live in cold places and it's really hard to get off the couch when it's freezing outside. Some people just want to wash their bike or eat better or whatever their goal is. So everybody has their own individual goal, and we're all cheering for each other because we're going to do better together, and we're going to encourage each other to do the things that are important to us and do the things that make us happy and ride bikes the way that we want to ride bikes. And that can be road bikes and mountain bikes and BMX bikes and any kind of bikes and anywhere. And you don't have to just ride inside. You can ride outside. You can ride with your friends. You can do whatever you want because it's your goal. So you decide the rules because there are no rules. And as incentive, because incentive's great, right? If you do all 3 months, you could win a bike from Live or Giant of your choice up to $3,000. But if you must Zwift, which sometimes it makes the time go by, I'm leading 2 Zwift rides per challenge week, so that would be 6 in total. And if you do 3 of them, you could maybe win a group set. And we have a previous winner of a group set here today. So it's real, I'm not lying. I've given away 4 bikes and 1 group set, and a lot of other smaller prizes. So if that is something of interest to you and you would like to know more, you can go to that website, there's flyers in the back, or you can come visit me at Table T18 because there is an expo deal. I'm doing this. There's an expo deal today, and it's cheaper if you buy it here today from me. And I would like to do better together with all of you, if you will. And that is my spiel. Thank you so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of your expo.